It was a quiet, cold night in space. A team of explorers aboard the Discovery, a state-of-the-art human spacecraft, drifted through the stars. Their mission was simple: to explore new worlds, gather data, and return home safely. But tonight, things would take an unexpected turn. The crew had been monitoring a strange signal from a distant planet, located in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. The signal had been faint at first, almost like a whisper, but over time, it grew stronger. Captain John Turner, a seasoned explorer with a sharp mind, was the first to notice the irregularity. He studied the data on his console, eyes narrowing. "This isn't natural," he muttered under his breath. "What do you mean, Captain?" asked Sarah, the ship's communications officer. She looked up from her console, concern growing in her voice. "It's a signal, but it's not like anything we've ever heard before," he replied. "It's coming from that planet down there." He pointed to a holographic map on the wall. The planet was dark and had no signs of life on its surface. There was no reason for a signal to be coming from such a barren place. The crew gathered around. "The captain, should we investigate?" Sarah asked, her voice laced with curiosity. John hesitated. "It's a risk, but I think we have to. If there's something out there, we need to find it." With a unanimous vote, they changed course and headed for the unknown planet. As the ship descended into the atmosphere, the air grew thicker and the gravity shifted. The team strapped themselves in, knowing that landing in unknown terrain could be dangerous. Suddenly, the ship's sensors beeped loudly. "Warning, unidentified object detected." The voice of the ship's AI, AURA, echoed through the cabin. Everyone turned to the display, where a large, metallic object appeared on the planet's surface. John's heart raced. "What the hell is that?" he muttered. The object was huge, round, and smooth, like a giant metal egg buried half in the sand. It wasn't anything they had seen before. The ship's scanners couldn't pick up any useful data. It was almost as if the object was shielding itself from their technology. "We need to go investigate," said Alex, the team's geologist, his voice excited and nervous at the same time. "This could be a breakthrough in science. Prepare for landing," John ordered. The ship made its descent, gently touching down not far from the mysterious object. The engines shut off, leaving the crew in complete silence. The only sound was their breathing and the soft hum of the ship's life support systems. The crew gathered their equipment and prepared to disembark. Sarah and Alex led the way, both eager to get closer to the object. John followed closely behind, his hand resting on the sidearm at his waist. As they approached the object, they noticed something strange. It wasn't just sitting there. There were faint energy readings around it, pulsing like a heartbeat. "It's alive," Sarah whispered, her voice tinged with both awe and fear. "Not alive, but definitely not inert either," Alex corrected. "We should be careful. This might be some sort of trap." John agreed. "Stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with here." The closer they got, the more unsettling the object became. It had no obvious entrance or markings, just a smooth, reflective surface that seemed to shimmer in the weak sunlight. As they circled it, Sarah noticed something even stranger. At the base of the object, there were faint markings, like symbols etched into the metal. "Look at this," she said, crouching down to examine the symbols more closely. "These don't look like anything from Earth." John bent down to inspect the symbols. They were intricate, almost hypnotic in their design. They seemed to be a mix of shapes and lines, but the meaning was impossible to decipher. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. The entire object began to hum, sending vibrations through the air. The team stepped back, instinctively reaching for their weapons, but nothing happened. Not immediately. "What's going on?" Alex asked, his voice rising with panic. Without warning, a section of the object's surface slid open, revealing a dark, circular opening. It was as if the object was inviting them inside. "Should we go in?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking. John hesitated for a moment, but his curiosity got the better of him. "We don't know what it is, but we can't leave without exploring. Let's go." The crew moved cautiously toward the entrance. The air around them was thick, and a low buzzing sound filled the air. It was unlike anything they had ever felt before. As they entered the opening, they were hit by a sudden wave of heat and a strange, musty smell. The walls inside were smooth, metallic, and covered in strange markings. Similar to the ones outside, the space was vast and endless, like they were inside the belly of some ancient machine. John's heart pounded in his chest. I don't like this. We need to get out of here if it feels wrong. Just as they turned to leave, the entrance slammed shut, trapping them inside. A voice echoed through the chamber, a voice not of any human, but something alien. You should not have come here. The crew froze, their minds racing. The voice seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. In that moment, they realized they were no longer alone. The crew stood frozen in the dim light, the walls around them humming with a strange energy. The metallic scent in the air was heavy, and the voice that echoed through the chamber seemed to come from every direction at once. It was cold and commanding, yet there was an underlying sense of urgency that made their blood run cold. You should not have come here, the voice repeated, its tone unyielding. John's heart pounded in his chest. Who are you? He called out, trying to steady his breathing. What do you want from us? The walls seemed to pulse as if the entire structure was alive. Responding to his words, the voice didn't answer directly, but the air around them grew denser, as though the very atmosphere was thickening. Pressing against them, Alex shifted uncomfortably. This doesn't feel right. We need to get back to the ship. But before they could even turn around, a bright light flashed from above. A shadow moved across the walls, and a figure materialized before them. It wasn't human, nothing like what they'd ever seen before. The creature's skin shimmered, its body sleek and insect-like, with elongated limbs and eyes that glowed a vivid purple. John stepped forward, instinctively placing himself between the creature and his crew. What do you want from us? He repeated, his voice firm despite the fear creeping into his veins. The alien didn't speak. Instead, its eyes locked onto John, studying him as if it were trying to understand something about him. It took a step closer, and the ground beneath them vibrated in response. The crew instinctively took a step back, but John stood his ground. Why are you here? The alien finally spoke, its voice low but clear, like the sound of wind through a canyon. You trespass on a place you cannot comprehend. You disturb what has remained hidden for eons. Sarah, her voice barely above a whisper, stepped forward. What is this place? Who are you? The alien didn't answer her directly. Instead, it extended one long, bony finger toward the walls. The symbols they had seen earlier began to glow, each one illuminating in a sequence. The walls shifted, the metal panels moving like living flesh, revealing more intricate patterns and designs. It was as if the walls themselves were communicating, telling a story that had been buried for centuries. This is the last of my kind's sanctuary, the alien said slowly. Once my people ruled the stars, but now we are forgotten. The power we left behind is dangerous, and you have awakened it. John felt a chill run down his spine. What power? What are you talking about? The alien paused, its glowing eyes studying him. You are humans, the ones who were prophesied to unlock the door. You are the key and the curse. The words hung in the air like a heavy mist. The crew exchanged confused glances, trying to make sense of what the alien had said. John took a step forward, his mind racing. I don't understand. Why are we the key? He asked, his voice steady despite the growing sense of dread. The alien seemed to ponder for a moment before it spoke again. Its voice tinged with a sadness that felt almost human. You are like us, yet not. You are the ones who will either awaken the power of the ancients or destroy it. The choice lies with you. A low hum filled the air, and the chamber began to shift again, the walls moving to reveal a large, glowing pedestal at the center of the room. Upon it sat a small, crystalline object, glowing softly in the dim light. It pulsed like a heartbeat, as if it were alive. This, the alien continued, its voice barely above a whisper, is the last of the core crystals. It contains the knowledge and power of my people, but it is also a weapon that, if misused, could tear the fabric of reality itself. John's eyes narrowed. And you want us to take it? The alien's eyes flashed with something that resembled fear. I do not want you to take it. I want you to leave. but you will not. Not until you make a choice. The air seemed to grow colder, the weight of the alien's words sinking in. John's mind raced. What was this alien asking of them? What choice did they have to make? Why us? John asked. Why were we chosen? The alien didn't answer right away. It simply looked at John, its gaze piercing through him as if it could see into his very soul. You have come to this place not by chance. You have come because your species is at a crossroads. You will either advance, using the power of the stars, or you will fall, destroying everything in your wake. This crystal holds the answer, but it will not be easy. It will test you. The room seemed to shrink as the weight of the alien's words pressed down on them. The power of the crystal, the fate of their species, all of it rested on their shoulders. John didn't know if they were ready for such a burden, but he knew one thing: there was no turning back. Sarah looked at John, her eyes filled with uncertainty. What do we do? John turned to the alien. If we take the crystal, what happens to us? The alien's eyes flickered with something unreadable. If you take it, you will either ascend or you will fall. The choice is yours. But beware, once the path is chosen, there is no returning. The crew stood in silence, the weight of their decision pressing down on them. The room seemed to hold its breath, as if even the walls were waiting for their choice. John knew that whatever happened next, their lives and possibly the fate of their world would never be the same again. The silence that followed the alien's words was deafening. The weight of the decision they faced hung in the air, suffocating them. John's eyes lingered on the glowing crystal at the center of the room, its pulsing light almost hypnotic. It was hard to believe that such a small object could hold so much power, so much potential. Sarah shifted uneasily beside him, her gaze fixed on the crystal as well. What if it's too much for us? What if we can't control it? She murmured, her voice trembling slightly. John turned to her, his expression serious. We don't have a choice. We've come this far. If we walk away now, we'll never know what we could have done with that power. But if we take it, he paused, the uncertainty in his voice betraying him. If we take it, we might just save everything, or destroy it all. There was a long moment where no one spoke. The alien stood motionless, its eyes never leaving John. The hum in the room was almost deafening now, vibrating through the walls, through their bodies. It felt like the entire ship was alive, and its pulse was in sync with the crystal. I'm not sure I'm ready for this, Alex. The geologist spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. This isn't just some ancient relic. This is something we don't understand. I mean, look at it. He gestured toward the pedestal where the crystal glowed menacingly. It's powerful, yes, but it's dangerous. We don't know what it's capable of. You're right, John replied, his voice firm but tinged with doubt. We don't know what it is, but we know what it could mean. This could change everything, our understanding of the universe, of life itself. But we also know that power like this comes with a price. They all turned their attention back to the alien, waiting for an answer. It didn't seem to mind the tension building in the room. In fact, it almost seemed to be savoring the moment. You must decide, the alien said. At last, the crystal can only be activated by one who has no fear of its potential. You cannot take it if you are divided. If there is any hesitation, it will reject you. John took a deep breath, looking back at his crew. They were all staring at him. Now, the responsibility was his. But it was clear to him that they all felt the weight of the decision equally. Whatever happened next would change their lives forever. We've come this far together, John said, his voice quiet but resolute. We need to be unified in this. If we don't trust each other now, then none of this matters. He turned back to the alien. How do we activate it? The alien's eyes flickered for just a second. A trace of something, perhaps approval, flashed in its gaze. It will respond to your touch, but only one can touch it at a time. The one who is chosen will feel it resonate with their mind, their body, their very soul. John hesitated again. He didn't feel any different. He was just a man, a human who had been sent to explore the stars. He didn't have any grand destiny. And yet, here he was, standing before an ancient alien power, with the fate of his species resting on a single choice. Don't do it, John, Sarah spoke softly, stepping closer to him. We don't know what this thing will do. It could tear us apart, I know, Sarah. But the longer we wait, the more uncertain things will get. This is bigger than us. We can't turn back now, he said, his hand reaching out for the crystal. He could feel the heat of it even before his fingers brushed its surface. The moment his skin made contact, a shock ran through him, a jolt of energy that surged up his arm and spread through his entire body. His heart raced and his vision blurred. The crystal pulsed beneath his hand, each beat of its energy seeming to sync with the pounding of his heart. In that moment, everything changed. The world around him twisted, and he felt as though he was falling, drifting through an endless void. Colors and shapes, alien and familiar world around him, merging and splitting in chaotic patterns. The crystal was no longer just an object. It was a living thing, and it was speaking to him. You are the one. You are the chosen. The future of your world is now in your hands. The voice was not the aliens, but something much older, much more ancient. It echoed in his mind, reverberating with a power he could barely comprehend. His mind struggled to keep up. But the words, they were clear, undeniable. He tried to pull away from the crystal, but his hand wouldn't budge. It was as if the crystal was pulling him in, merging with his thoughts, his essence. What is this? He whispered, his voice shaking. He felt his entire body vibrate with the power coursing through him. You must decide quickly. The balance of the universe rests on your choice. Take the power, and you will reshape everything. But beware, for with great power comes great destruction. The words hit him like a physical blow. He could feel the weight of the decision bearing down on him. If he took the power, he would have control over something beyond human understanding, something that could alter the very fabric of reality. But could he trust himself with that? Was he truly the one to wield such power? Just as quickly as it had started, the vision stopped. The world around him returned to normal, but the energy of the crystal still hummed beneath his fingertips. He gasped, pulling his hand away and stumbling backward. His heart pounded in his chest, and he could hear his crew's voices around him. But it felt distant, muffled. "John, are you okay?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling with concern. He didn't know how to respond. He wasn't sure if he was okay. Everything felt different now. He could feel the power still lingering in his body, an unrelenting force that seemed to pulse with his every heartbeat. John looked at the crystal again, feeling both terrified and awed. This was no longer just a choice. It was a burden, a responsibility. And in that moment, he realized that there was no going back. The air in the chamber felt thick with tension, the very atmosphere charged with an energy that seemed to hum in tune with John's heartbeat. He still couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted within him. The crystal's power had sunk deep into his core, leaving him feeling both empowered and burdened. His crew gathered around him, their faces etched with concern, confusion, and curiosity. But John's eyes were fixed on the glowing crystal, still pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm. He could feel its call, an invisible tug that resonated deep within him. "We need to leave," Alex said, his voice tight. "This is madness. We don't even understand what's happening. The longer we stay here, the more dangerous it gets." But John didn't answer right away. His mind was still swimming in the rush of energy. The vision that had assaulted him moments ago, the words of the ancient power, the chosen one, the balance of the universe, echoed in his mind. Was it real? Could he really change the course of everything? He turned slowly to face his team, his face pale, but his eyes now filled with a strange determination. "I can feel it. This power is more than just a tool. It's alive. It's asking something of us." Sarah stepped forward, her voice laced with concern. "John, what are you saying? That thing, it's dangerous. We don't know what it could do to you, to us. You need to step back before it consumes you." Her words cut through the haze of power that clouded his mind. But John couldn't bring himself to step away. "Not yet. I think I need to understand it. I need to know what it wants." "Why us?" Sarah's eyes widened, her breath quickening. "John, listen to me. You don't know what you're dealing with. We could be making a huge mistake. We need to leave now before it's too late." But he couldn't. He couldn't leave without knowing, without understanding. "I have to find out," John whispered, almost to himself. "I have to know what this is, what we're meant to do with it," before anyone could respond. The chamber round them began to shake, the walls trembled, and the ceiling seemed to ripple with a strange, liquid-like movement. The hum of the crystal grew louder, almost deafening. The very air seemed to vibrate, as if the entire structure was alive, awakening. "What's happening?" Alex shouted, his voice panicked as he gripped the side of a nearby wall. The alien, the creature that had led them here, stood still, its gaze unwavering as it stared at John. Its expression was unreadable, almost as though it were waiting for something. "Do not be afraid," the alien said, its voice cutting through the chaos. "It is time." John's heart raced. Time? For what? The alien's eyes narrowed, its long, slender form moving toward the pedestal that held the crystal. "It is time for you to choose. The power of the crystal has awakened within you. You must decide how to use it." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. John's stomach twisted. The alien was right. The crystal had awakened something in him, something he hadn't fully understood yet. The energy inside him felt like a storm, crackling and building, ready to unleash itself. But unleash it on what? And who would bear the consequences? "I don't know what I'm supposed to do," John admitted, his voice trembling slightly. "I don't even know if I can control it." The alien tilted its head, its glowing eyes focusing on him with an intensity that made him feel small, insignificant. "You were chosen because you have the strength to bear it. But with strength comes responsibility. The crystal will show you the way, but only if you are ready to see the truth." The ground beneath them shuddered again, and the crystal began to glow brighter, sending a pulse of light through the chamber. John's mind raced, his heart pounding in his chest. What was the truth? Was he truly ready for whatever lay ahead? A sudden, sharp pain lanced through his head, as if his brain were being ripped apart. He gasped, stumbling forward, his vision blurring. He could feel the crystal's energy swirling inside him, twisting and turning like a living entity. The power was overwhelming, suffocating, and he felt himself slipping under its weight. "John!" Sarah shouted, rushing to his side, but it was too late. The vision came again, this time more vivid, more intense. "The power you wield can change everything, but it comes at a price. Every action, every choice creates ripples. The path you take will shape the universe. Will you choose to create, or will you destroy?" The voice wasn't the alien's. It was something older, something more ancient. John could feel it in the very marrow of his bones, the truth of the universe, of existence, flowing through him. But the cost was unimaginable. He could see entire galaxies, civilizations, all bending to his will. He could reshape history, alter the fate of species, and erase the mistakes of the past. But the images that followed were darker, more terrifying. The destruction, the chaos, the unraveling of everything he knew. It was all possible, too. John gasped, his mind reeling. He tried to pull away from the vision, but it was too strong, too powerful. He saw the future of humanity triumphant. Yes, but at what cost? Would they stand tall, or would they fall, lost to the very power they sought to control? The vision faded, but the weight of it remained. The pain in his head subsided, and he was left breathless, trembling. The crystal's light dimmed slightly, as if it were waiting for him to make a decision. John swallowed hard, his throat dry. He looked at his crew, Sarah, Alex, and the others. They were watching him, their faces filled with fear, uncertainty, and hope. "I don't know if I can do this," John whispered, his voice raw. "I don't know if I'm ready for this." The alien moved closer, its presence calm yet commanding. "You will never be fully ready. No one ever is. But the universe does not wait for readiness. The choice is yours." John's mind was a whirlwind of emotions, his heart torn between the desire to use the power for good and the fear that it would consume him. But there was no going back. Whatever he chose now would shape everything. The future of humanity, of the galaxy, of all life, rested on his shoulders. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and reached out for the crystal once more. This time, he knew what he had to do. The moment John's hand touched the crystal again, everything around him shattered. It was as if the very fabric of reality had torn apart, and he was pulled into an abyss of swirling, chaotic energy. His body tingled with the crackling sensation of the crystal's power surging through him. every nerve on fire with energy. For a moment, he couldn't tell if he was still standing on solid ground or if he had been thrust into another dimension altogether. Images flashed before his eyes, fleeting glimpses of worlds he couldn't recognize, ancient civilizations that spanned galaxies, and futures that twisted into dark possibilities. He saw the face of the alien, but it was different now. Its eyes burned with a strange intensity, urging him to listen, to understand, but he couldn't. The flood of sensations was overwhelming, and he struggled to maintain his grip on reality. "You have awakened the power," the alien's voice echoed in his mind, louder than before, but distant and muffled at the same time. "Now, you must choose the path." The words reverberated through his skull like a hammer striking an anvil. John's pulse quickened as his vision began to clear, the rushing chaos in his mind slowing down to a dull hum. He saw the crystal again, its surface glowing brightly, as though it were pulsing with the heartbeat of the universe itself. But this time, he wasn't just looking at it from the outside. He was the crystal. He was the power contained within it. He could feel the potential that lay dormant inside him, just waiting to be unleashed. A wave of fear washed over him. What if he wasn't strong enough to control it? What if he made the wrong choice and everything he knew, everything he loved, was destroyed? The power was intoxicating, but it was also terrifying. He could sense the delicate balance that hung between creation and destruction, and how easily it could tip into chaos. But he couldn't stop now. The choice had already been made. The crystal's power had already entered him, and there was no going back. Suddenly, the light around him flickered, and he was thrust back into the chamber with his crew. The floor beneath him felt solid again, the chaos of the vision fading, though the lingering hum of the crystal still echoed in his bones. He staggered back, gasping for air, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. "John." Sarah's voice broke through the haze in his mind, and he looked up to find her standing before him, her face pale with worry. "What happened? Are you okay?" He opened his mouth to speak, but found that the words were difficult to form. He wasn't sure what had just happened, but he knew that something deep within him had changed. He felt different, more aware, more connected to something beyond himself. The crystal had shown him a glimpse of what could be, of what he could do with its power, but it hadn't given him any answers. It hadn't told him what was right or wrong. "I don't know," John whispered, his voice hoarse. "I don't know if I'm okay." The alien stepped forward, its presence looming over him like a shadow. "You have seen the future, human. Now, you must decide how to shape it." John turned toward the alien, his mind still reeling. "I don't understand. What do you mean, shape it? What future?" The alien's glowing eyes seemed to deepen, as if it were peering into his very soul. "You hold the key to the future of your world. The power you now possess can either create a new era of prosperity or bring about its destruction. You are the fulcrum upon which the fate of the universe rests." The alien's words hung in the air, but John couldn't fully grasp their meaning. The weight of the power within him was overwhelming, and the choice seemed too great for any one person to make. Could he really change the future? Could he really be the one to wield this power and make everything better? Or would he be the one to unravel it all? Sarah stepped closer, her hand reaching out to touch his arm. "John, you don't have to do this alone. We're with you." Her words were like a lifeline, but they only deepened the confusion in his mind. He wasn't alone. No, but the responsibility was his. The crystal had chosen him for a reason, and he knew that the weight of that choice would follow him forever. As the alien watched him, its expression unreadable, John felt a sudden rush of understanding. The crystal wasn't just a tool, it was a test of character, of will, and of morality. It was asking him whether he was ready to lead, ready to make the decisions that would shape the future, no matter how uncertain or dangerous they were. For a long moment, John didn't speak. He was lost in thought, trying to piece together what the alien had said, what the crystal had shown him. The future was in his hands, but he wasn't sure if he was strong enough to carry it. The alien's voice broke through his thoughts. "There is a path you can take, but it is fraught with danger. You will not be the only ones seeking this power. Others will come. They will try to claim it for themselves, and if they succeed, They will use it to bring destruction upon your world. The choice you make will decide whether your species rises or falls. John's gaze flicked to the crystal once more. It was still glowing, still pulsing with that undeniable energy. He could feel it calling to him, urging him to make the decision to take the power and shape the future as he saw fit. And yet, the more he thought about it, the more he realized that the power wasn't truly his to claim. It belonged to the universe. He was just the one chosen to wield it, and he had to make sure that it was used wisely. The decision weighed heavily on him. But there was one thing he was sure of: no matter what path he chose, the world would never be the same. He had seen it in the crystal's vision. He had seen the endless possibilities, the worlds that could be born from this power, and the worlds that could fall into ruin. John took a deep breath, his heart pounding. He didn't have all the answers, and he couldn't predict the future. But he knew that, for better or worse, the fate of humanity was now his to decide. With that realization, he stepped forward, placing his hand on the crystal once more. This time, he was ready to embrace the responsibility. The moment John made contact with the crystal again, the room seemed to dissolve around him. A sharp, violent pulse of energy surged through his body, unlike anything he had ever felt. His vision blurred as the chamber and his crew vanished, replaced by a swirling expanse of colors and lights that stretched infinitely in every direction. He was no longer standing in the chamber. He was standing in the heart of a vast, unknown cosmos. The stars around him blinked out one by one, until all that remained was a single, intense beam of light. It shot up from the crystal and engulfed him. His body stiffened, as if the very molecules within him were being rearranged, realigned with some ancient force. He was no longer human, nor was he alien. He was something different. The time has come for you to understand. The voice echoed through the void, the same voice that had guided him before, but now more powerful, more forceful. You are the bridge between worlds. The future rests in your hands, and it is time for you to choose how it unfolds. John tried to speak, but no words came. His body moved, but it was no longer controlled by him. The crystal, the power inside him, was in control. His mind raced. What did it mean? The universe, the future? What was he supposed to do? He wanted to ask, to demand answers, but the only thing he could hear was the deep, resonating hum of the crystal, vibrating through his very being. Then, something shifted. The beam of light parted, revealing a sprawling city, suspended in the stars, surrounded by swirling nebulae. It was a city unlike anything on Earth, built from shimmering, otherworldly metals that seemed to pulse with energy. But as John focused on it, his heart sank. The city was in ruins. The buildings, once magnificent, now lay in ruins, broken and shattered by some unseen force. The entire city had been decimated. "This is the future," the voice whispered, the gravity of its words sinking deep into John's chest. "This is what happens when the power you now possess is misused. This is the end." The image before him shifted again, but this time, it wasn't destruction. It was a vision of peace, of prosperity. He saw people, humanity living in harmony, working alongside alien civilizations, building a future together. A future where the knowledge of the crystal was used to heal the planet, to foster cooperation, and to reach the stars. This was the other side, the potential of what could be. But even as he saw the peaceful future unfold, John felt something dark looming in the distance. It was subtle at first, a shadow on the horizon, but it quickly began to grow, swirling with energy, creeping toward the vision of peace like a storm on the edge of a quiet sea. He watched in horror as the storm reached the city, engulfing everything in its path. The peace was shattered, replaced with chaos and violence. "You see," the voice continued, now colder, almost regretful, "both futures are possible, but one must come at the cost of the other. Choose wisely, for the consequences will ripple throughout time." John felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The crystal's energy pulsed around him, resonating with his own heartbeat. He was standing at the crossroads of destiny, one path leading to a future of unimaginable peace and cooperation, and the other to destruction, chaos, and suffering. He could feel the consequences of each choice pressing against his soul. The vision of peace still lingered, But the destruction crept closer. John's mind raced. He could see it all, the choices, the sacrifices, the outcomes. He could feel the power within him, and it was overwhelming. It was more than he had ever imagined. But now it felt like a burden. He understood the crystal's message. This power was not to be wielded lightly. It was not a gift, but a responsibility, a dangerous, uncontrollable force that could tip the balance of the universe one way or the other. Suddenly, he was back. In the chamber, the crystal was still pulsing, its light dimming, as if waiting for him to make his choice. The air was thick with tension, and his crew was standing around him, their faces pale with fear and confusion. They had no idea what he had just experienced, but he could feel the weight of the decision hanging over them all. "John," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "What happened? What did you see?" John looked at her, his mind reeling with the vision he had just witnessed. He could still feel the power coursing through his veins, the weight of the choice that now rested on him. "I saw the future," he said slowly, his voice distant. "I saw what could happen if we use the crystal, but also what could happen if we don't. There's a cost to this power, a price we'll have to pay." Alex stepped forward, his eyes wide with fear. "What are you saying? What did you see?" John didn't know how to explain it. How could he? The future was vast, and it wasn't just about the crystal, it was about humanity, about every choice they would make from here on out. Every decision had consequences. Every action would shape the course of history. "I saw the futures," John said quietly, his voice filled with uncertainty. "One where we use the power to build something greater, something beautiful, but another where we destroy everything we've built, where we tear each other apart. The choice is mine." The room fell silent. No one spoke, but the weight of John's words hung heavily in the air. The alien, who had been watching silently, stepped forward again, its glowing eyes focusing on John. "You must decide," it said simply. "The fate of your world lies in your hands. Choose the future you wish to create. The power is yours to command, but know that it is not without consequence." John's mind spun. Could they handle this power? Could he handle it? He thought of the crew, of humanity, of everything they had fought for. Could he stand by and watch the destruction? Or would he risk it all for the chance at a better future? He reached for the crystal again, his fingers trembling. This time, he felt something different, a sense of clarity, a deep understanding of what had to be done. The decision was not just his to make, it was theirs. Together, they could control the power, or they could let it consume them. The future of the universe depended on it. John took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He knew what he had to do, and the crystal responded, the light around him flickering with an intensity he had never felt before. The future was in their hands. The air in the chamber was thick with anticipation, the silence almost deafening. John's hand hovered over the crystal, the power within it beckoning him like a siren's call. His heart hammered in his chest, and every instinct told him to hesitate. But deep down, he knew there was no more room for doubt. The choice was no longer just about the crystal or the power it held. It was about the fate of everything. His crew, humanity, and the future itself rested in the balance. He had seen the two futures, the possible outcomes of using or not using the power, the peaceful world, full of growth and unity, and the dark, destroyed one, where greed and violence had claimed everything. The choice was stark, and it weighed heavily on him. As he stood there, the crystal's light flickered, growing brighter with each passing second. He could feel its energy swirling around him, tugging at his very soul. It was as if the universe itself was waiting for him to decide. He wasn't alone, the weight of his crew's eyes on him, their hope and fear intertwined, pressed down on his shoulders. They were all waiting for him to act. John looked back at them, his gaze moving over each of their faces, Sarah, Alex, and the others. They were all there, standing by his side, willing to trust him despite the uncertainty. They had come this far together, and now it was up to him to lead them through the storm. "Whatever happens," he said, his voice steady, though the weight of the decision threatened to crack it, "we face this together, no matter which path we take." Sarah stepped forward, her eyes filled with concern, but also a deep trust. "John, you're not alone in this. We'll help you. Whatever you decide, We stand with you." John nodded, a small, grateful smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He could feel the strength of their unity, their collective resolve, as they prepared for whatever came next. Together, they had been through so much, and now they were about to face the ultimate test. The alien, standing off to the side, observed silently, its eyes glowing with an unreadable expression. "You must choose, human. The path is before you, but it is not without sacrifice. The future cannot be shaped without cost." John turned his gaze back to the crystal. The energy it emitted now nearly overwhelming. It was alive, pulsing with an intelligence and power beyond anything he could understand. But there was one thing he knew for certain: the power wasn't evil, and it wasn't inherently good. It was what they made of it, and the choice to wield it had to come with responsibility. The visions of the future flashed before his eyes again, more vivid this time. He saw his people united, a thriving civilization, working side by side with alien races, learning from each other, growing together. It was a future of peace and prosperity. But then, the vision shifted. He saw the same people, but they were divided, consumed by greed and fear. The power that could have saved them was twisted into a weapon, tearing apart everything they had built. Chaos reigned. "You must be the keeper of balance." The alien's voice echoed in his mind, as though the creature had sensed his inner turmoil. "Only you can decide which future is born from the power you now hold. But remember, the path is fraught with danger, and once the choice is made, it cannot be undone." John's fingers trembled as they hovered just above the crystal's surface. He could feel the immense potential within it, the lives it could save, the people it could unite. But there was also the risk. What if they failed? What if, in their pursuit of peace, they brought about their own destruction? "I've seen what could be," he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. "But what if I'm not strong enough to wield this power?" Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts, a steady anchor in the midst of his uncertainty. "You don't have to be perfect, John. None of us are. But together we can make the right choice. We trust you." Her words were like a balm to his battered mind. He wasn't alone in this. The power he now held was a burden, yes, but it was also a gift. It was a gift not just for him, but for everyone, for all of humanity. It was a gift that could shape the future. But he had to choose, and it had to be the right choice. The crystal's pulse grew louder, more insistent. John felt the weight of it bearing down on him, the knowledge that whatever decision he made would echo throughout the universe for generations to come. He wasn't just making a choice for himself or his crew. He was choosing for the future of every living being, for every potential that lay in the stars. The crystal was the key, but he was the one who had to unlock it. He reached out, his hand steady now, and placed his palm on the crystal. The moment his skin touched the surface, a surge of energy coursed through him, sending a shockwave of light out into the chamber. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the power that had been dormant for eons was released. It was no longer just a tool, it was a living force, a force that responded to his will, to his decision. For a moment, everything stopped. Time seemed to stretch, and John felt as though he was suspended in space, watching as the threads of fate wove together. Before his eyes, the choice was clear now. He knew what he had to do. He closed his eyes, letting the power flow through him, letting it connect him to the world beyond. And when he opened them again, he spoke the words that would change everything. "We will use this power to unite, to build a future where no one is left behind, where we work together to heal the world and the galaxy. We will learn from our mistakes, and we will rise stronger." The crystal flared to life, its light blinding for a moment before it began to settle, the pulse steadying in time with John's heartbeat. The chamber was silent, the weight of his decision settling over them all. The alien stepped back, its expression unreadable, but its eyes filled with something that resembled approval. "The choice has been made. The future will now unfold as it was meant to." John looked around at his crew, their faces filled with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. But they were together. They had made it. The future, whatever it held, was theirs to shape. And as they turned to leave the chamber, the stars above seemed a little brighter, a little more hopeful. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: their story was just beginning.